Howdy, everyone. This is Aggie SWAMPCAST back for episode 2. Today, it is just me and Brek in the studio, and our topic of today is going to be favorite director, which will probably end up becoming a discussion of favorite directors, because it's sort of hard to pick, at least for me.
Yep.
So we'll see how that turns out. We'll see how much rambling about stuff you might never have seen. Hopefully, you'll have seen some of it, or that you will see some of it. And we'll just sort of see how this goes. It's going to be another laid-back episode where we're just sort of chatting about what we like and what we think you should like, too. Okay, I'm going to ask you, Brek, first, since I don't really have an answer for this one. Who is your favorite director, and why?
My favorite director has to be Christopher Nolan, because I just love his style. His movies are just so rewatchable, and I think he spreads his genres through, like, many parts of cinema. Like, he has my favorite sci-fi movie of all time, Inception, and a bunch of other sci-fi movies like Tenet, Interstellar, also definitely high up there. My favorite comic book movie, The Dark Knight, also by him. And I think one of the most original movies ever made was Memento, also him. So
it's versatility.
Versatility and rewatchability, I think does it a big two for me.
So I mean, obviously, I agree. He's very rewatchable. I watched Inception 3 times in 1 year.
Yep, same here.
And I don't even really like that movie. I think it's perfect, and I mean, it's literally a perfect movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the biggest fan of it, but
That's fair.
It's a perfect movie. And I feel like that every time I watch one of his movies, it's like, this is perfect. Might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it is perfect every time. So would you say the rewatchability is more important, or the versatility, having the director where you can go back to him and sort of watch it, so you don't get bored of the same thing feeling, you know?
See, that's an interesting thing, because...
Or is it even different, or am I actually sort of combining the ideas here, and versatility might make him rewatchable because it's different?
I definitely don't think that's the case, because it's not like I binge watch all of his movies at once. I think he makes those films that you just have to go back to every time, and every time you rewatch it, you pick something up, or it just becomes more enjoyable every time. I almost hearken it to Tarantino, although two very different directors. I've noticed every time I rewatch a Tarantino film, I have that same experience where I have a better experience the second time compared to the first time, and then even better the third time. So that's definitely for me, that's a trademark of a fantastic director, if they can achieve that level of credibility in their films.
So with his movies, when you say you notice something new, is it... So I know personally, when you brought up Tarantino, what comes to my brain is I usually get more out of Tarantino movies, so I'll notice little funny bits or little acting bits, but a lot of the times I'll come back having watched some more of the movies that he might be referencing, and so I begin getting more reference-wise or culture-wise out of the movies, whereas I feel with Nolan, it's something very different. It's much more of a... I would say it's more plot-driven. It's like little stuff. It's like the little... Is it intricacies, I'd sort of say? Like how the puzzle fits together makes more sense?
Mm-hmm. That's really funny you should mention that, because I feel like a lot of the criticism that Nolan gets is that he relies way too heavily on exposition and way too heavy on plot. And I almost agree, if it wasn't the fact that his plots are so different than anything you get in a regular blockbuster movie. Tenet was a huge part of that. A lot of people had issues with it. Of course, I had issues with it too, plot-wise. But again, the more you watch it over and over again, the more you realize that really the plot is well realized. It's just that the issue comes with the exposition. And so, I'm scrambling so much in my brain.
Yeah, I know there's a lot to go through there. Do you want me to remind you what the question was? What it asked? What is that? What do you get more out of the experience every time? I figure, like, plot-wise, and then we'll get into movie making stuff in a minute. But
yeah, definitely more plot-wise, but also like little character moments. He's really, really good at doing those little character moments. It's not. I won't say this is quite a spoiler, but in Inception, you remember the little scene with the Tom Hardy and oh crap, what was his name?
I'm horrible with actors. I can't help you there.
Okay, so guy who oh my gosh, I have to look this up. Oh, that's embarrassing. A guy who plays basically Leonardo DiCaprio's sidekick.
Okay. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
That little scene where you gotta dream a little bigger, darling. That you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Just little moments like that. It's just it sticks with you every time. And the more you rewatch it, the more it just sticks.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. How can I forget that?
The other thing that I would like to mention with that is I was actually whenever I had to rewatch it, I had to rewatch it for a project for a class where we had to analyze it. And I was on costumes, and all that stuff, and I had to rewatch.
Was it intro to film?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was painful, but I did it. But it gave me a lot more appreciation because when you talk about that little stuff, it was like every time I went back, I had more to notice, like in everything. Because like I was doing this, and someone else doing sound, and they were pointing out motifs and stuff we'd missed, but like especially with costumes, their relationship was most interesting because whenever I rewatched it, it was sort of like it was a little bit more camaraderie than it seems on that first viewing. They seem more at odds, and then you begin realizing there's something deeper there, and it's like even like the little details, like the clothes they wear, put them at odds and make them similar. It's very interesting, a lot of that stuff. And so the little details are just perfect. I mean, I bet a lot of movies have those like little details, but in his they seem impactful.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just sort of there, like it is a cool little tidbit, but his it's like, oh, okay, I sort of understand.
Definitely. I actually did my project over Interstellar for intro to film. And that kind of had the same thing, but it's more of a connective tissue between the father and the daughter in that movie. Also, his movies, I love the way how he never tells his stories linearly, it feels like. He's really good at editing back and forth to different plot points in the movie. Memento being the best one ever done, I think.
Which I haven't seen. So.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go too far into it because that movie gets nuts. But yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Well, I actually have some more questions. So, if you had to pick, what are the top three? I think you said Inception and Interstellar. I'd assume be top three. But what's the third one?
I actually wouldn't call Interstellar top three for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, no. Because I do have a couple issues with that movie, even though it's one of the only movies that make me cry. I think I'm gonna have to go with Inception. No, Inception definitely on top, yeah. But Inception would be my favorite movie, but I think the best movie he made is Memento. And then below those two is The Prestige.
Okay.
I think that one
So I've seen one of those.
is supremely underrated.
Yeah, I hear I read and heard a lot of opinions on The Prestige where it's like there's some people I know just love it like to no end, and other people are like, this is garbage, and I don't know which one it is.
I've actually never heard somebody say it's garbage. I only heard like or love.
Oh, okay, interesting. I'm trying to think what else. I still haven't seen Tenet. That's the one I really want to see. It seems like it just might be bonkers enough that I might appreciate it more.
It's definitely his most outlandish movie yet.
And that's what I feel like is like whenever I would watch a Nolan movie, it's like, this is just a little too safe. I want something weird. I want something out there. And I feel like Tenet might provide that experience. Not saying that I don't like all of his movies. I like every one of them I've seen. But it's something like it's not that emotional connection you were talking about. Like Interstellar got pretty close to that. But a lot of his movies, I'm just like, this is a great movie. Yeah. I'm not feeling a whole lot, but this is a great movie.
I think two of his most underrated films is one, Following, his first one. If you love filmmaking, you should watch it. It was only made, I think, with a $6,000 budget, and it's one of the cheapest movies to be released in theaters nationwide, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong in many details there, but definitely very, very inspiring as a filmmaker because you can see all the imperfections, and I love that with like something like El Mariachi. You can see the imperfections that makes it just a little bit better. And another one is Insomnia. Have you seen Insomnia?
No, I have not.
That one is very, very good.
Okay.
When Al Pacino.
Okay. That'll have to be another one off to watch. Trying to think what else there is that I could. Let's see. Let's actually break this up. Let's split it and let's do. So you talked about your favorite movies, which ones you like by him, and who your favorite director is, and sort of what you connect with in them. We'll get back to how they inspire you as a filmmaker in a minute, and then I can give my favorite director, which hopefully won't be the longest part of the podcast, because I don't really have a pick here. I just spent all week thinking about it, trying to decide, who am I gonna say is my favorite director.
Yeah, so what you gotta do is you gotta get a whole list, and you just gotta roll a dice to see which one is.
I almost did. I mean, mentally it'll just be whoever I remember. But we had talked right before the podcast started to try to iron out some of the ideas, and I was up in the air between Kurosawa and Kubrick, which are both pretty like normie picks overall. I think. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's.
I disagree. I feel like
it's not like a normie pick in the way that it's wrong. It's right. Like I 100% agree because obviously they're my two favorite. But at the same time, it's like a lot of people. That's like a very common choice, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna pull out some weird director out of my hat that's like no one's ever heard of. But yeah, the same thing with me. If I had to pick Kurosawa, I would say I would put him as my favorite director since he's made my favorite movie, and a couple of my top 10. But I don't like a lot of his classics actually. I like Ikaru, and I like Dreams, and I like Seven Samurai. But Rashomon, Ran, and Kagemusha, I'm not that big of a fan of.
So I do have a question for you. Do you grade directors on their individual projects they've made? Like you talk about, you said Ikaru, right, is your favorite movie of all time? Or do you grade by consistency?
I'm generally more of a by movie guy because I feel like there's some people that have made like one great movie and then everything else they made is pretty okay. I feel like there's still something worth of value generally in looking at the rest to see where they fell off, where they went wrong, something like that. But I feel like overall, I care much more. I don't care about consistency that much. I mean, it's sad whenever they stop being consistent, and I would prefer everyone to be consistent because then there's much more good stuff to watch.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people, it's just hard to ask that they're that consistent with everything. So that's why I have trouble picking favorite director because I go, I like this guy for this movie, and I've seen so much now that it becomes a deal of this guy inspires me in this area, and this guy inspires me in this area, and then this is this. So then it becomes sort of a conglomeration. But if I had to pick consistency and variety, I feel like Kubrick is the old school Nolan. I've heard that someone put forth that argument before.
I don't know about that. I feel like Kubrick is like in a tier above every other director on the planet.
He is, but like the argument goes that like they sort of both work on that consistency and variety. They make a large variety, and they focus a lot on interesting ways to tell the plot, all that sort of stuff. Now I feel like Kubrick is probably much more traditional in how his plots are structured, but he's always playing with form a lot. Like not so much in the narrative sense, but a lot in the sense of, I mean, some in the narrative sense, like Full Metal Jacket's break, but a lot in the actual art of filmmaking and all the equipment and everything.
Definitely. They both do transcend films in terms of visual style. 2001 probably being the most significant.
Yeah. He
really changed the game there. Visually. Yeah.
I'm trying to. I think that's what just makes him so good for me is that consistency. I think every one of his movies I've given a 10. I haven't seen Lolita. His first one was supposed to be horrible, and then Killer's Kiss was the other one I forgot about earlier. That's the other one I haven't seen. But I've seen pretty much everything else, and I think everything except for The Killing was a 10 for me. It's just every movie is like, this is perfect. It thinks the way I think because I'm very much an argumentative person. And so I like the way that he definitely builds like an argument and a case within the plot of how, and not always telling you how you're supposed to read it, but it feels like everything has a purpose and connects and the level of research and all of that. So I always found that very interesting. But yeah, I think those would be my two favorites. Now outside of that, you get into wonky territory where it's like I might pick a person here or there that were almost as impactful. But in different ways. Like it'd be weird because after that, I think I'd start saying like George Lucas was the guy that made me want to make movies. But now so George Lucas got me into movie making, so he would have to be up in the top favorites. But I don't really watch many of his movies anymore. But stuff like Bela Tarr, who's like I can't remember what nationality he is, but he makes amazing movies, and that'd probably be like near the top as well. Even though I've only seen I think one or two of his movies, they've just been that good where it's like this earns him a spot. But yeah, I think after that, I'm much more of a movie person. It'd be like, I like this guy for this.
See, that's a difference for me because I like consistency in directors. I feel like without it, it almost feels like a whole lightning in a bottle situation where they got this one great idea they put out and it's fantastic, and then they kind of have a it doesn't quite reach that level of expertise. Let me think of a good example.
I think everyone brain would go to the guy that made Donnie Darko. Have you seen Donnie Darko?
I have. Okay. I actually don't know the director's name.
I don't either. He's made one movie. That's it. Like he's made a couple others, but I think from what I've heard, they're not really worth the watch. I mean, I would hope that they were, but I have not heard great things. I think that's a good example.
I almost want to go with, as an example, Tom Hooper, guy who did. That's his name, right? I hope I'm saying it right.
Hooper or Tom Hooper?
Was it Tom Hooper? The one who did King's Speech.
Oh, okay.
King's Speech. Yeah, I think it was Tom Hooper.
Well, Tobe Hooper was the guy that did Texas Chainsaw and all that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not right.
Yeah,
Tom
did
Hopper? Tom Hooper?
Was it not?
I have no idea.
Look up a King's Speech and tell me what the director's name is.
Oh yeah, that's true. I could just do that.
Because he did a King's Speech. He did
he's done other stuff.
Les Miserables, but then he did Cats, and that kind of tanked his career. Hardcore.
Yeah, that would be an oof. I can't get it to pull up, but yeah, I figured Tom. Yeah, it is Tom Hooper.
Tom Hooper.
But I feel like he's made other stuff that like has been good. The Danish Girl's supposed to be very good, from what I've heard.
I forgot about that one. Yeah.
So I feel like he's not exactly like a full one-hit wonder, but I think like what is the limit where after they've made 3 good movies they can earn the director thing, or is it like 2?
I don't know. It's
like
hard to say because it depends on the movie, depends on the director.
Yeah.
Like, because you could call him a crappy director. I've heard his directing style in musicals is abysmal.
Okay.
Like it's completely going against how musicals are supposed to be made. I don't fully know the details. It's been a while since I've looked into it, but apparently the way he directs musicals is like going against everything that a musical stands for.
Interesting.
Even though Les Miserables, I heard, was very, very good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it when I saw it. I don't know if I would now. That's the whole deal. Is like everything I say that with. If I haven't seen it in 3-4 years, it's like I don't know if I'll like it anymore. But yeah, I think for me, I'm not like a full one-hit wonder guy. Like I wouldn't give the guy that made Donnie Darko Best Director because he made Donnie Darko. I feel like it's like you have to have like 2 or 3 good movies, like 2 or 3 movies that I really love to get you. Because I feel like there's some directors that just have such a great catalog, but even then, like they didn't make many movies. Like I'm thinking of like Sergio Leone right now, who has like masterpiece after masterpiece of westerns, but he's only made I think like 7 or 8 movies. Yeah. So it's like 5 of those are masterpieces, or like I haven't seen all of them yet, so I don't know about all of them.
You could say the same about Kubrick. Honestly, he's only made a few movies, but the few movies he's made is literally the best ever made. So
so I think there's that element of it. Now, I haven't seen Fear and Desire, which is supposed to be horrible. It's supposed to be like horrible garbage. Kubrick tried to burn it off the face of the earth, and they have a copy of it that you can buy on Blu-ray.
Is that one of his first?
It's his first.
Oh, his very first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a I am just blanking with people's names completely. Who did Gone Girl?
What?
Who did Gone Girl? Who did Seven? Who did
David Fincher?
Thank you.
Yeah.
God. Okay. That's embarrassing. His first movie, Alien 3, he hates that movie with a burning passion.
Yeah.
And I think I can't say it's worse because he said himself that he doesn't see that as his movie. Like he's completely erased it.
Yeah.
And I think he's also a masterful director as well.
That's another great one. I'm trying to think who else. So this might be something that might be fun to bring into the conversation. It might be way off topic, but as we talk about favorite directors, you named Nolan and I named Kubrick. So I named old school people like the old masters are Kurosawa and Kubrick, and you named a new master. So I've heard this discussion before. Like I've had it with some people. Like we look into the past and we have Scorsese's still active, but like you have Kubrick, you have Kurosawa, you have Bergman, you have Tarkovsky. Tarkovsky's another great one. Hitchcock. See, that's still I named like weird Russian people before I named normal people. But so like all those big names and we know them, but who today is going to be like that? I think Tarantino's easy to say.
He's kind of a 90s. If you're thinking of modern time, I think
still active till today.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. Denis Villeneuve, 100%.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, he is. Besides Nolan, I think Villeneuve has made some of the best movies, in my opinion. Prisoners.
Okay.
Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, Arrival.
Did he make, what's the one where Jake Gyllenhaal plays the 2 different people?
Enemy.
Did he make that?
He did.
Okay. Enemy was good. I like Blade Runner. I think
Enemy was his first.
Yeah, I liked Enemy for what it was. I thought it was very clever.
I agree.
Not amazing, but very clever.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Blade Runner 2049. I prefer it to the original Blade Runner.
Same here.
I prefer the book to both. I think.
Still haven't read it.
I know.
Yeah.
We talked about this last time, but I think I still think, yeah, I could see him being one of them. I think Dune will be a make or break on that. Like, if he stays.
I would be so very upset if Dune doesn't reach the heights that I hope it would reach.
Yeah, I feel like how many movies does he have? That's like Prisoners.
He's made an international film midway into his career that I
Okay.
haven't seen. That's why I didn't originally list him as my favorite director, because I haven't seen everything from him.
Yeah.
Nolan is one of the only directors where I've seen every single one of his feature films.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would get pretty close. Where I think he could be one. I think Inarritu, Birdman. I know I just butchered that name to death.
Yeah, I was thinking of him too.
But Birdman,
Revenant.
Revenant, all those are great masterpieces. And I feel like, and I know people. I haven't seen his earlier stuff, but people swear that it's better than all of his new stuff even. So if it's even close to those, then that means he's got a pretty solid catalog that I think would be pretty great.
Yeah.
I could see him being one of like the favorite directors in 20 or 30 years. I don't know what he's up to now. I'm trying to think who else.
Now, do you think
is.
they'll reach the cultural significance that people like Kubrick or Hitchcock have in the past? Because I feel like they pioneered something.
Yeah.
And I feel like Nolan or Villeneuve or they're building off of that in a way.
Well, I feel like it's a hard question to answer, because I feel like Kubrick and everyone is popular for now, but how can we say that they'll be popular in a little while? Because like I did a lot of silent film watching over the summer and stuff, and there's people that are way more pioneering than Kubrick or anyone. Like the way that we tell movies, the way we shoot them, all that sort of. I mean, okay, Kubrick would probably rival them just because of the sheer amount of stuff that he's created. But unlike the technical, but like for the growth of the art form, no one really watches silent movies anymore. They don't fit the vogue. They're not easy to watch. Even I like them, and I almost fall asleep. So I wonder if like in 20 years, we'll be like, Kubrick's sort of boring, and we'll sort of forget about him. And then who will be the next guy? Because I feel like it'd be Kubrick and Scorsese sort of overlap, but I feel like Kubrick is early. I don't know why, but in my brain, Kubrick sits as a master that would have inspired Scorsese. And I know they were working at the same time, but that's how it works in my brain. I picture Kubrick as really one of the old guard, and Scorsese still is a little bit like newer, just because he's still working, I think. But
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it'd be hard to judge. I feel like Scorsese will stay around, but because he's still active for a while. But I'm trying to. I don't know anyone else. Like there'd be like small stuff that would stay relevant in certain niche groups, like Bellatar that I named earlier. I think he stopped making movies. He retired, but I think he probably will stay relevant in niche circles for a long time. But like stuff like that, I don't know who else it would really be.
I guess it also depends on where movies will go from now.
Yeah, I feel like that's what we're like. Kubrick pioneered so much technique and plot that we now use. So we have to wait for a new development like that to happen. And I guess you could argue that like Marvel movies were technically a technical development like that just because of CG, but it was a step back in other areas. So it's sort of hard to argue that we haven't had a revolution that's been like widely accepted by both critics and people as like will stand the test of time. Like that's a revolution of the form.
I see what you mean by that, but I don't know if you can say Marvel movies like is like a next step kind of thing in terms of visual aesthetic. It's more like a cultural significance.
Cultural significance.
Like everybody wants to do the cinematic universe style after that.
Yeah, I feel like I was talking more about the cinematic universe, but also the CG, that maybe that will start. The CG will lend itself to a movie in the near future that will perhaps use it to its full critical and audience-pleasing capacity, whereas Marvel just has that sort of one side of it. I mean, they're usually fine, but they're also not amazing, so it's sort of an in-between.
I know I feel like this is going to divert even more off the original topic of directors, but have you seen The Mandalorian?
No.
Okay.
I don't watch TV.
That's fair. But the way they did the visual effects there, do you know about the visual effects that they use?
It's the
LED screens.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be the new thing.
I know, but
in
I don't
20 years.
I feel like it will be, but I don't know if it'll have a big enough impact like Steadicam or something like that did that Kubrick pioneered, where it gives a whole new feel. It's still replicating reality. I don't know if it will do anything more. Like the films that have excited me most that are recent are, I think you watched Let the Corpses Tan, right?
I did.
Yeah, that's one of the movies that excited me most recently, just because of the sheer how different it was. It was using the film form to its fullest, way over the top stylistic extent. Not that it's very great or perfect, but that it was using it in a different or more interesting way, at least to me.
Yeah.
Okay, back on topic. I'm going to switch back. We're going to get off this little tangent. So you said Christopher Nolan. So how has he impacted you, do you feel, as a filmmaker?
I think as a filmmaker, I like to focus more on concepts, but I think that's the whole like short film thing. You're limited to only a few minutes, so you only can introduce a concept. You can't really build on that as much in a limited runtime. But I've noticed when I try to make my concepts in my short films, I try to make it in a similar way as Nolan, as to try to do something very different, but also building off of what's already been done.
Okay.
So say like I don't want to get too much into following plot-wise, but it's definitely building off of stuff that has already happened, but in a very, very different way, in a very different direction.
Okay.
And the ending is very, very original. At the time, of course.
Okay.
It came out. So,
that makes sense.
I mean, the 2 short films I've done is basically stuff that's already been done, but with a little twist to it, and that's the kind of stuff I want to do in the future.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm actually going to ask you more questions of that. So you said it's concept-wise. So is there anything other than just major plot, like taking that little twist and, learning that sort of element of it, is there anything visually from Nolan that you think you steal a little bit? Have you noticed anything that you'll try to steal from Nolan that way? I've watched your stuff, and I feel like it's not quite. Nolan feels very, very high production, and I know you can't do that, but I feel like there's some stuff.
I wouldn't say visually. Visually, I honestly hearken to stuff like Refn, Nicholas Winding. Honestly, he's the one who inspired me the most visually, from a visual perspective.
Interesting.
Because that's the best aspect of his movies.
Yeah.
That and maybe David Lynch, but I actually seen my first David Lynch movie after I made my first short. Mm-hmm. And that's funny because my first... no, not my first short, but partially through making my second short film, I noticed that... you've seen the intro sequence to it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that was Lynch-light.
Okay.
Almost. Personally, I think it's Lynch-light, and it's funny because I made that intro before I seen a single Lynch movie.
Okay. So what was your first Lynch movie then?
Eraserhead.
Okay. That was my first as well. That was that is great. Did you
awesome.
like it?
Of course. Oh yeah, no, that was amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm a big Lynch fan, so Lynch was I think Lynch would have been my favorite director if you asked me about 2 or 3 years ago. Not so much anymore, but I still appreciate his existence.
Yeah. I don't particularly enjoy his short films. He's
Yeah.
made a lot of short films.
Yeah, he can be really hit or miss on his stuff, and it's really weird because you can sit. My brother watched Twin Peaks over the summer, and he expressed it perfectly. He's like, you can have an episode that has the worst, one of the worst lines of dialogue and some horrible lighting in it, and it looks atrocious. And then 30 seconds later, he'll blow your mind with the best thing you've ever seen on television. And it's I don't know how you can be this inconsistent. I mean, he's pretty consistent, great across the board, but there's moments where it's oof, that was an oof.
I think it's the fact that he's just he really enjoys testing new stuff, especially in Eraserhead.
Yep.
That came out, I think, late 70s, and there's stuff in there that I've never seen before.
Yep.
And that might be the fact I don't watch as much movies as the average viewers, filmmakers, so I don't know about that.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, so you would say Refn for visuals, Nolan for plot, and then I guess a little bit of David Lynch on accident in there. But
yeah.
Okay. So
everybody takes a little bit from Lynch on accident. I think.
Yeah, that's true. So what about outside of plot and that? Do you think there's anything else you borrow from him? Do you try to focus on little details like he does and concept or anything like that? Or are you mainly? I feel like his stuff is all very high concept. When you say you put a twist on it, it's almost like putting a twist up a level almost because it becomes higher concept.
I'm not sure. I can't really everything that I made already. I can't really compress it down to only a few directors.
Yeah. I mean, both of us have only made. You've made 2 short films.
I made 2.
I've made 3 or 4, and I've helped on a couple others. And even at that point, it's I don't have enough of my own visual style to be able to point to someone. So I get that. Yeah, that's true.
I think I've conjured up a visual style.
Oh yeah, yours are very visually strong overall.
Thank you.
So.
And I feel like that They're pieces here and there.
Yeah.
I really excited to make this the Fright Fest horror short because I have a lot of ideas visually on what I can do because I've been casing my apartment because that's the only filming location I'm going to be doing, and there's a lot of fun stuff I think I can do with lighting especially. I bought these Christmas lights.
Oh yeah.
I'll be using. Yeah. So I think that's going to be fun.
Oh yeah. I'm still trying to figure out Fright Fest. So.
Yeah.
You're farther along than I am.
I do have a question for you.
Okay.
About directors, and that's pretentiousness. I feel like a lot of the some of the more prolific directors have almost sometimes have a bit of an ego to them, and a lot of their later films gets a little pretentious because they know their audience and they know, you know what I'm talking about.
Like, give me an example. Who would you say?
Nicholas Winding Refn, 100%.
Yeah.
He started off with the I don't know if he started with the Pusher trilogy. I think that was good intentions. But I think after Drive, especially, he started to get real pretentious with his work, and visually, I think they're fantastic. But in terms of concepts and some of the stuff they did, I just can't.
Yeah, I watched Only God Forgives, like I think last year, and it was just like I am not a fan.
Yeah,
of a lot of this.
That's definitely one of his weaker ones. Even though I love it visually.
And I love Jodorowsky, who I think sat on that, and like it was a love letter to Jodorowsky, which was. I've heard a lot of people comment saying that's the worst love letter ever written, but like Jodorowsky's amazing, and you can see what he's trying to do there. Yeah. But at the same time, I can see that with I haven't seen enough of Refn. I think I stopped at Only God Forgives, and I think I'll probably end up enjoying Neon Demon when I get around to it.
Neon Demon is a little bit better. I like the ending way better than Only God Forgives, but I think the one that I latch on to the most in terms of pretentiousness for Refn is Too Old to Die Young, even though that was technically a show. He calls it the 13-hour movie.
I've heard some people say that, yeah. But I find Refn an odd figure, too, because I don't know if you know, he runs a website called Buy NWR.
I did not.
And he remasters cult movies and stuff on there, and like the whole motto is culture for everyone.
Huh.
So it feels like I can see like the pretentiousness where I feel like a lot of times directors being pretentious is actually them. I feel like Refn got too much into his own head. It wasn't the fact that he was trying to think he was amazing. I think he was just like, oh, I made this and people liked that and I like that, so I'll do it more. I feel like pretension-wise, I can't think of movies that I feel like that's usually what it is. It's not so much. I feel like with Refn especially, it's more of just he got way too deep into one style. And I feel like with the knowledge that he remasters cult movies and like abysmally like 1 out of 10 rated movies that are like sexploitation and all sorts of varieties of exploitation and everything, that he is just really into his own style and what he likes, and so he might go too far into that.
I do have one more example in terms of the pretentiousness, and that's Lars von Trier.
Yeah, that is a difficult topic. Because yes, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of the pretentiousness comes from getting way too into your own style. And I mean, I guess it is pretentious because like Refn would believe that he knows what he's best. But at the same time, you have Tarantino who only does what he likes, and it's not pretentious at all because he does it with such a looseness, whereas they're treating it a lot more seriously. So I guess you could say Refn in that way. And Lars von Trier, I haven't seen a lot of his early stuff. And I refuse to watch The House That Jack Built. I have friends that...
I've seen it.
I know. I have friends that went and saw the unrated cut and all that sort of stuff, and I was just like,
I did not see the unrated cut. I saw the one on Hulu.
Yeah, I was like...
And that was enough for me.
I was like, I was just reading it, and I was like, this doesn't sound like my cup of tea. And just knowing it, and I've seen parts of it, and I've seen analysis of it, and it's like, there's still substance there, but I feel like with Lars von Trier, it's not so much that. He's just an edgelord. He just knows he can get people's reactions. Someone who's sort of like in this vein, I talked with Dr. Francis, who oversees this club, for those that don't know, and he hates Wes Anderson. Doesn't hate Wes Anderson, but dislikes Wes Anderson.
That's an interesting
I feel,
one.
and he stops after a certain point. It's like Moonrise and Grand Budapest, all those. He's too far into his own style. Now, I don't agree that it's pretentious, but I think it's like the good version of pretentious, where he's just gotten way too into his own ideas and style.
That's true. You excited for French Dispatch?
I am. I'm very excited. I still love all of his movies. So
I do too. I think his animations are way better in my opinion than
Yeah.
like Isle of Dogs and
Yeah.
um,
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Fantastic Mr. Fox. Thank you. And they're definitely way better in my opinion than his other works like Grand Budapest. Even though they're great films, don't get me wrong. But
I like the Life Aquatic. I like that the most.
I haven't seen that one.
That's my favorite. It's a lot of people's least favorite, but it's my favorite. But yeah. Okay, back on topic. Where were we? I mean, it's sort of on topic, but
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I can go a complete 180. You asked me top 3 Nolan movies, and since you picked Kubrick today, what is your top 3 Kubrick movies?
it would probably be 2001: A Space Odyssey. I would be torn between. I would like to say Clockwork Orange. Probably not next. I think it would be between 2001, Eyes Wide Shut, and Clockwork Orange, probably. Now, Clockwork Orange might become Full Metal Jacket. I'm not entirely positive.
Full Metal Jacket was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of Doctor Strangelove.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah.
I know a lot of people find it very funny, and I do not.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I still think it's great, but I just don't find it as funny as everyone else does. So I'd have to sort of stick to those 3. I like his stuff that's a little bit more subtle, a little bit more relationship and idea driven. I mean, 2001 is just sort of like a slow cinema after a certain point, and it's more of a mood piece. But outside of that one movie being so great, I like his much more relationship, drama focused stuff. Actually, wait, I forgot about Barry Lyndon. Oh my gosh.
I haven't seen that one either.
It's sitting on my shelf. I need to rewatch it. So pending rewatch, Barry Lyndon might be top 3 because Barry Lyndon's like a masterpiece as well. And I feel like that could be. It'd probably be It'd probably be 2001 Eyes Wide Shut and Barry Lyndon probably because I like the more drama stuff outside of 2001.
It's funny if you mentioned those because I feel like his most. I don't know if this is true, but I feel like his most popular movie in the mainstream audience is The Shining.
Yeah.
Even though that is currently my least favorite movie from him, even though I enjoy that movie quite a bit.
I really like it too, and I've only seen it once, and it was a while ago. But I really love it, but I feel like it's more popular just because it's a horror movie, and it was such a big deal at its time.
Yeah.
I feel like it for cinema's purposes, it's not quite as good as the other ones.
Yeah.
I still think I gave it a 10. But it's like
I think I did too.
We're parsing it. We're parsing like nickels here. Everything's gonna be a 10. Is it just like, is it a perfect 10 or is it just a 10 in theory? It's like
yeah, The Shining is his my least favorite masterpiece from him.
Yeah, that's what we're at. Yeah. Okay. What else? What else did I ask you that so we went over visual style. We can't really say for either of us. Although I will say visual style. Back to that. Something I noticed that I actually do is I was watching it. Kubrick does a lot of one-point perspective where he tries to lead all the leading lines into the middle of the frame.
Yeah.
And I was watching my recent short film again. I was like, I'm not doing it exactly, but I really do like that strong leading line into the middle of the frame. I did it as much as I could, I realized.
You're talking about A Night?
Yeah. And I thought that was sort of interesting. It's like, oh, so there's something that I pulled there. But the rest of that film is shot and edited very still, like it's a slow cinema movie. So that'd be Bellatar and stuff like that. But
So is there a director that you harken back to for your short films visually?
It probably I don't ever reference directors. I'm like, oh, I want to look like this guy. I will be like, I like this because of the idea and what it represents. So like for A Night, I looked a lot at slow cinema, and I liked the very locked off, very formal composition, very cold, to try to give the whole feeling of the short film very cold. And then whenever I cut into close-up or use handheld, it felt a little different. So I'm much more theory-wise, is like, this school does this for this reason, so I'll do that as well.
I see.
But I do think Kubrick comes up. I feel like Kubrick will probably come up more often just because I like his stuff so much. I feel like Kurosawa comes up some, but his stuff's very classical in its compositions and the way it's shot and works. I've shot a lot of stuff for other people, and it just becomes whatever style they sort of want to do. And so that becomes more of my visual style is very much, I love wide angle, like ridiculously.
Same here, yeah.
So I love wide angle a lot, and so I do a lot of stuff with that, and that's much more of Terrence Malick, which is another one of my favorites that I forgot.
About him, yeah.
I really really appreciate the wide angles in his movies, especially the really wide angles. But I feel like it does not so much as a reference. I reference a lot of photography. Like I won't give photographers because it's generally not. I will find images I like and I'll try to reference those. But I don't like go like, oh, it is after the style of this guy. It's like, oh, I like this general school and I like this image here and this image here. Yeah, paintings too. I do that a lot with paintings. I found out I really like medieval art paintings. Like the ones where they have the spooky demon that's like half cow. I just love those to death for some reason. So I have like a whole board on Pinterest because I'm that type of person. I have a whole board on Pinterest for all that sort of stuff. And I feel like that's where I draw a lot more inspiration from is sort of that visual language of painting. Even though I can't paint for anything, it looks like a paint by numbers done by a toddler whenever I paint. But
I could do modern art. That's about it.
I don't even know I don't think I'm good enough for modern art. Well, let's see. So we've gone over favorite directors and how they've impacted us through cinematography, and we've gone through how they've impacted us as, just loving their movies. What is an underrated director? Let's end it on that. What's an underrated director?
Okay.
Outside of favorites, underrated director people need to see more of.
I definitely got one.
Okay.
That's Craig Zoller. I feel like it's, I'm one of those guys. Yeah,
I'm going to disagree here.
Okay. 3 movies he's made I love to death. They're not perfect. Well, they're not perfect, but I keep going back to them because they're just so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
Bone Tomahawk. I think Brawl and Cell Block 99. I know you are not the biggest fan of that movie. I that's my favorite from him.
That's interesting because one of my friends is a very big fan of his and went to the film all the sort of special showings for all of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks I'd like Bone Tomahawk the most. And
have you seen it?
I haven't. And he thinks I'd like Dragged Across Concrete the least.
Interesting.
Which I don't know.
I think you might actually.
Let's put it in perspective. I absolutely hated Brawl in Cell Block 99. I find it was shot well. It was a good story, but I have a content thing where it's like, does it feel necessary and is it interesting enough, or does it feel like it's mixing the message?
I see.
And I felt in Brawl and Cell Block 99, the violence in that movie worked against the emotional core of it and some of the plot. And it was like, okay, are we an exploitation movie, or are we trying to be have a plot and have feelings? And it couldn't seem to pick. And I
see.
What this is like a really nitpicky thing that I feel like most people don't have, but I really like movies that fully commit. So if you're going to be exploitation, just go for it and just be as stupid as possible and just be over the top. And if you're going to be serious, do that, because I feel like a lot of times there's great movies that mix them, but I feel like a lot of times when people mix them, it starts to war. And I think that's what got me with that one.
See, I disagree heavily there. I think he blends the whole exploitive style of the Brawl and Cell Block, and also the really emotional backing of the story very well. Because he does that too with Bone Tomahawk, but the exploitation isn't quite there in Bone Tomahawk. I'm assuming that's why your friend said you might like it more.
Yeah.
I just love. I saw in an interview he said that the way he directs it like he's directing a D&D campaign. I think that's really funny, because now that he mentioned that, I can really see it. It's just people going through these adventures, and slowly they might have a little mistake here and there that kind of set them back a little bit, but they eventually get to this certain point where this crescendo. This,
I can see that.
Very much like a D&D campaign.
I can see that. I mean, it did looking back on Brawl and Cell Block, you say that and it does sort of make sense. And, I appreciated the style of the film, and a lot of the kills were great. In the wrong movie, but they were great. In my opinion, they were in the wrong movie. But I find it, like I said, I want to see the rest of his work. I want to see the rest of it, because I feel like there might be something, there's something there that I might latch on to.
Dragged Across Concrete, I also really enjoyed. However, I think it overstays its welcome by a good 20 to 30 minutes.
Oh, no.
It's almost a 3-hour movie.
I think that's why my friend didn't recommend it, because he said it's going to be way too long.
I mean, there's a 5-minute sandwich eating scene. So, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if it fits in the movie contextually,
that sounds more my speed, but at the same time, not in one of his movies.
I know. Didn't you say last time we shot? You said that you have a thing when it comes to slow burns. There's a certain point where you're fine with slow burns, but then there's this middle bit that you just can't do. That's why I
Yeah.
didn't like the Green Knight. I think that's
Yeah,
what
the Green.
context was
Well,
for
it's
that.
like the pointlessness of it. The Green Knight didn't have enough of a mood for me to hold me,
Mm.
and like, so for instance, earlier today I actually went and checked out Workmeister Harmonies, which is a Bellatar film, which I keep bringing up him a lot, and I know, and I will probably continue bringing him up a lot because the more I see, the more I'll probably like him. But his stuff is ridiculously slow, like painful. Like I almost want to take a nap while watching it. But at the same time, it's that point.
And this is the guy who had 2001 is his favorite movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, 2001 is fast compared to some stuff in that. But it's like it's the same sort of deal where you can watch someone walk or eat, or it'll be very silent with no dialogue for a long time, and it takes a lot to really. But I feel like in certain movies, there's such a mood and a core philosophically there that you can actually like begin analyzing what's in the frame, and you can begin piecing together stuff. So by leaving so much time, it forces you to think. And then whenever you've been thinking, you've been piecing it together. And I feel like in The Green Knight, as soon as I started thinking, I was like, gosh darn it, I hate this. There's nothing going on. Whereas in like other movies, it's like, okay, I'm getting what they're doing. I know why they're torturing me. This is why, and I'm gonna appreciate the torture now. So I feel like that's a case of things as well. But I feel like I won't say Bellatar is underrated. I know that's the next question, but I know because I mentioned him so much. I am actually gonna throw out someone else that I think more people should see, but I don't think more people should like. Because I don't know if it's not everyone's cup of tea, but there's a filmmaker called Scott Barley, which I've probably mentioned in clubs before. I think
you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, he makes great stuff. I haven't seen his feature Sleep Has Her House yet. I have the Blu-ray on the way.
Gonna look it up.
It is all fully experimental. It is all slow cinema. It is all very slow, methodical. But there's a poetic edge to all of his stuff that I don't quite know how to explain because it's not like there's a character you grab onto. It's all images. And images and sound. A lot of sound. So it's very important to listen. Yes, that. Yeah. And he has a great short that probably my favorite short called Womb. And I just love it to death. And I will show it to anyone who will watch it with me.
It's on YouTube? Or
it's on Vimeo.
Vimeo? I'll check it out. Yeah.
It's like 20 minutes long, and it's just bodies contorting and space and noise and like sounds, and I don't know what it is about it, but it just transcends to a different level, where there's not a character to grab onto or really even an idea. Sometimes it's the mood and the feeling that gets into your skins, and that begins forming the idea for you rather than the idea forming a mood. And so I feel like he's very niche, so he's underrated overall. But I think the people that have seen him will generally very appreciate it. And a lot of his stuff is free on Vimeo, so go watch all of it and then pay him money and support him whenever he releases posters or anything else, or if you want to own the movies. It's great. It's really great work.
I do have something I want to add before we leave this off, but I noticed every single director that we have mentioned has a special like visual style. Is there a director out there who has like some of the best concepts, maybe wrote it himself, has some of the best writing and really, really good directing, but doesn't really have much of a visual style to it? Because do you think a director's trademark is the way the movie visually looks?
This might be a very unpopular and very controversial opinion. Very controversial. This is the first person that popped in my brain, and I don't think I even fully agree with this point myself. I feel like after a certain point, you become an author whenever you start losing, because visuals are so important to cinema that to begin losing the visual, you begin losing what is cinema.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes Jean-Luc Godard can become a better writer and idea man than he can be a shooter, because he gets so far into ideas that you have to have read books to understand.
I don't think I've seen any of his films.
It's Breathless. Breathless you probably heard of. It's one of the most famous French movies. Weekend, Pro Le Fou. I love Weekend. Pro Le Fou was my favorite movie for the longest time. Godard was my favorite director at one point. Hail Mary, which I also checked out today. It's a brilliant film. He has tons of great stuff, but I feel like his visuals can sometimes lack because they're raw, and that sometimes gives him a certain energy, which is nice, especially Breathless. I feel like you can't argue that Breathless doesn't have a style to it, but I feel like, especially after a certain point, he begins getting a little video-y, and he just begins filming ideas. So he'll film someone doing this thing, and it will still be shot well, but it's much more about the idea. I feel like so he has a visual style, but ultimately what matters more in his movies are the ideas. It feels like, but then you generally can't get the ideas because you haven't seen his stuff. But for instance, it'll start quoting books, like whole books, and you will not know. He won't tell you the author and he won't tell you the book. So you'll go read an essay on it, and he goes, he's actually referencing this 4th century poet here, and this is connected to this, and then this guy responds with a quote from this novel, which in dialogue means this, and then that is why he puts a shot of the fly. It's like, without knowing all of that, you would be sort of lost. And like I feel like it's hard to also argue because he also made a movie called Contempt, which is like some people think it's the most visually beautiful movie ever made. So at the same time, I feel like his ideas are more important than the visuals sometimes. But that's why I don't think I fully agree with it because they all have a visual style. But I think the ideas trump it a lot of times. He almost becomes more of an author, which is interesting because he was a critic first. So it's sort of like there's a at play there where there's some movies where the visuals do take hold and they're really good, and there's some movies where it's like, okay, I mean, it's visual, but the ideas are obviously more important. Okay, who were you going to say for this?
I was actually going to almost harken back to as Craig Zoller, if it wasn't the fact that he definitely has a visual style to his work, but he definitely focuses a lot more on the writing, I think.
Yeah.
Because he was an author before, and I think
still is.
A few of his movies are based on books that he's already written previously, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I could be 100% wrong with that, but I know for a fact the next movie he's making, can't remember that, I think it's Chickpenny, something like that.
Yeah.
Gothic horror, and that's based on a book that he written a few years ago or something. So.
Okay, so it's the same sort of argument. Not that they don't have a visual style, but you sometimes feel the writing takes precedent for theirs, the ideas.
Definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I haven't seen enough of his movies to like fully say that, but I can see that a little bit from what I remember from Brawl and Cell Block.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what else we have to say here. So this might be the end of the podcast, guys. Do you have any closing comments, Brek? Other than go watch X. Craig Zoller.
Yeah, go watch Bone Tomahawk. I think that's the best introduction as Craig Zoller. And if you haven't seen all the Christopher Nolan movies, I highly recommend every single one he has made. So.
Yeah, and I think mine will just be go watch Womb by Scott Barley, and then pick up any of the other works you can of his if you like it. There's lots more. You won't like everything he's made. I mean, that's the case with everyone, but I think there's a lot of good stuff there if you start just digging around and looking. But yeah, I think that's our favorite directors. Christopher Nolan for Brek, Kubrick for me, with a little bit of repetitive mentions of Bellatar, and you, Nut Refn for you, sort of interest you as well in that visual style and language.
Can't forget about him.
Villeneuve. So there's a good mix here. Obviously, I'm much more classic.
Yeah.
I'm the old man of the group, but
I'm new wave.
Yeah. Don't put your hope in me. I'm a dying breed at this point. But yeah. Well, so this was Swampcast favorite directors. So leave some of your favorite directors in the comments. Tell us why we're wrong. Tell us that Colin Godard not having a visual style is a dumb argument. Same thing for Zoller. Call us out on that. We'll correct you and tell you you're wrong, but you can feel free to call us out on it. Tell us some of your favorite directors. Tell us what we should be watching. Tell us if you watch some of this stuff, what you think. We'd love to hear what you have to say, and then we'll look forward to the next Swampcast, which we'll start planning as soon as I end this recording.
Yep.
So see y'all later. Okay, well, that's it.